Welcome to Find the Connection, the podcast where we explore the history, development, events, and stories that make Northeast Florida so inviting. I'm your host, Kendra Robertson, a real estate professional, community leader, wellness ambassador, and proud resident of Jacksonville Beach for over 30 years. In each episode, we'll dive into the stories of the people that are making a difference, both at a local level and nationally. We'll share an inside look at real estate with tips for maintaining work-life balance, from winning your mornings to winning your day, all while staying connected with our vibrant local community. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's find the connection between community and living your best life. Today I am with John Miller with Rock Solid Law. We see each other at sunrise every day. He is walking at sunrise and I am swimming at sunrise, and he has kind of been a witness to my breaking through an unhealthy decade. But he also is very involved in the community, and we have known each other since I was managing a restaurant and he was a musician. So lots of community activity on his part. But first, I just want to welcome you, and I guess we'll start with how you came up with the name for Rock Solid Law. I always thought it was musician based, but there's a story to it. So if you can explain that.
Well, first, thanks for having me. And lots of connections, I think, is the way we would describe our long-term relationship together here at the beaches and Jacksonville in general. So the first, 20 or so years of my having my independent firm, it just had my name like so many lawyers do. And I really decided that I wanted to get away from that, and originally came up with the Rock Solid Business Law because one of the things we do is represent entrepreneurial business owners. But one of my paralegals said, well, that doesn't tell anybody at all that we do closings and title. So we ended up with Rock Solid Law and Title, which pretty much expresses what we do. In addition to those two things, the third thing is we take care of families with trusts and estates, estate planning. So I wanted to come up with a good name that would have a little bit of a wink for people. People like you who knew me first as musicians got it immediately, but for years I had not told my law clients that I have that musical side of my life. And I often say you don't do music, you be music. We are musicians. It's not something that we leave and walk away from. And I've just been so fortunate to have sort of a side avocation for all of these years while I practice law as well. So my name, John, is a family name, and there are many John Millers before me in our family. And most of them, my brother's 10th generation, including my father, are Presbyterian or Church of Scotland ministers. And while it is said that Peter is the rock on which the church was founded, John baptized Jesus, so I think it's very arguable that he is a rock to the Christian faith as well, and that's something that's important to me. So I wanted to include that, and then a little bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the yes, I am a rock musician, so that when people get the double entendre, they have an aha moment and tend to remember it. I don't think I look at all like Dwayne Johnson. No, I don't have any fantasies of that, but I've had people walking down the street say, hey, Rock, because I'm like, I'll answer to that as long as you remember me in a positive context. So those two rocks. And then I was always interested in King Arthur, the Camelot and the literature around Arthur, the legendary king of the Britons. And I actually studied the rise of medieval law and medieval Arthurian literature at St. John's College, Oxford, England, during a term between college and law school. So the Arthurian legend was always important to me, and so when we did our logo, it's a sword coming from a stone. We actually have an alternate one where it's a guitar neck coming out of the stone, which we use sometimes just for fun. But the sword and the stone, to me, of course, Arthur in legend became the king because he drew the sword from the stone. Well, every family also has a sword stuck in a stone, and you really have to find out where they're stuck. And then you can help them through planning move through that into a better future. So that's really what our sword and our stone is about. And I think I mentioned to you once before that my wife wanted to name our daughter Avalon, based on a rock song, candidly. Mm-hmm. But Avalon is also the name of the island of the great souls where Arthur was going to wait to the time that he became the once and future king. So all of this ties in a really nice bow. Got my name off the firm. Right. I'm so lucky, so many years of practice in this community, and, have built a great relationship, but I don't want it to be all about me. I have an amazing team, and they need to be honored too. So we are collectively the rock, and we like to say that we build a rock-solid foundation for our clients, families, wealth, business, and home.
I love it. Yeah. I also love when we do a closing, you also offer those extra services to my buyers and sellers.
Well, it's important. And, I won't say that I had the foresight, but it's really important how a home is held in title. And a lot of people forget even to put their home in their trust, which, makes things so much easier on the heirs they leave behind if they've treated it properly that way, to keep them out of having to go to court. A home, Florida homestead is, as you well know, one of the greatest protections in the world.
Right.
But a homestead also is not, by definition, part of a probate estate, but you have to file a probate to get a judge to enter an order proving it's homestead. So if you don't properly do something with your title, you're going to end up in front of a court, or your family is, and it affects your legacy. It's so important to protect the way people are going to think about you once you're gone.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't realize even to put it into a trust,
Yeah, it's a lot to think about. And I like to say we Floridians, most of us are millionaires because our sand has gotten so valuable, right? So really, when you get into that level, real property, if it has to pass through probate, can be very expensive to your heirs. So we want to do what we can to not make them have that expense.
Right. And it's a lengthy process too, right?
Because everybody would rather be at the beach than in court. And if they're in court, they're thinking of you, not in your best light, right? So leave happy memories behind and let them celebrate you fondly.
Well, while we're talking about the beach, so you walk almost every morning, right?
I do. I've been so fortunate to live in a home in Jacksonville Beach for over 30 years. And used to jog, and now that I've got 6 decades behind me, my physician thought maybe my knees would appreciate it if I would healthy walk instead. And I just find it's such an amazing way to start the day with the glory of nature and our beautiful ocean. And this time of year it's pretty dark, but most of the year I get to see the sunrise. I'm usually home already when the sun's rising this time of year. And I love it when I see this crowd of people through the mist that I've now been able to identify as the early morning swimming crew. At first I was like, who the heck is coming toward me? I felt like it was a shootout at the OK Corral and there was only one of me, and then it was you lovely people all smiling. And I think I'm brave some of those cold mornings, but you guys are about to get wet. So my props to you. And I just think it's wonderful that you guys have a community like that exercises together.
Well, and as an entrepreneur, I'm really winning my morning, and I can try and schedule a yoga class or exercise later in the day, but nobody needs me at sunrise, so it never gets interrupted, Yep. And then I'm winning my morning starting from there, just puts a smile on my face every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the time to think. I prioritize, and I think of my motivators, and I pray, and it's just such beautiful time out there. And there are 8 or 10 other people out there to say good morning to.
Yeah, we see all the regulars.
Yep.
So one of the things that I've always been impressed with you, John, is your networking. You had invited me just to a small lunch at your office with other people in the industry, and I think at the time I didn't have my systems in place to really connect and follow through and keep that connection going. And now that I look back on it and I have my systems in place, I'm much better at following up and keeping in touch with people that I meet. How did you come up with that? Like, what inspired you to just connect random real estate, or not even real estate, but something, that maybe we could help each other out with?
Yeah, thanks for asking about that. And I think you just said that if I invite you again, you'll come now that you have your systems down and follow up. So we'll get you back on that list. Having practiced here in Jacksonville and now in Ponte Vedra for like over 40 years, it's stunning to me that I've been here this long. But one of the most valuable things I think as a member of the business community that all of us can do is to refer other people to professionals that will do a good job for them, right? That warm introduction to a person. And I have really, at least in over 10 years now, really kept my referral list. And I always say it's hard to get on it. It's not hard to get off if 2 or 3 people telling me you're not taking care of them.
Right.
But a few years ago, I thought, you know what? I have all these people that I'm in referral relationship with, and I trust them, and I know them, and almost all of them I like. That's not to say if there's somebody I'm not particularly fond of, and they're great at what they do, I wouldn't refer to them. But I started realizing, wouldn't it be a cool thing to sit down and have a meal with others who I know and trust, and they know, like, and trust me, but they might not know each other. So what a great opportunity for them to meet. And Kendra, like when you came, it's been just remarkable. I had at one of them, let's see, I think it was a financial planner and a CPA. And I do try to invite, people from different, like there probably was a banker or a mortgage broker or something when you came, people that can benefit each other as well. Not that I'm opposed to sitting down with my competition, because I make referrals to people who do what I do when they're better placed than I am to help the client. I just did that yesterday. That's one lunch, 2 guys, and they were 2 different generations, and they both turned out to be from Long Island, New York. And the conversation was hilarious in that, wait a minute, where are you from? What town? It ended up that they had gone to the same high school, and not only that, they actually had lived, albeit a decade apart, like 2 streets away from each other.
Wow.
And I just randomly invited those 2 guys to that lunch. And so the connections that are made of those are great. I don't try to force anybody to do business with anybody else, but if somebody says, I'm going to need your card, that's what it's for, right?
Right.
I found, now that I'm in my 60s, one of the things I really enjoy is community building, right? And I think you and I are both the same in large regard on that. And it's just, you're going to do business with people that you know and can learn to trust. And one of the best ways for me to learn to trust somebody is if you tell me you trust them. And I already have that trusting relationship with you. So, if I were looking for somebody, maybe that you knew, or a type of profession that maybe I thought you'd know, and you told me them, I would have no problem saying, I don't know this person, but I have a warm referral to them. I think you ought to interview them, see if they're the right person for you. So we do those about once a month. Mm-hmm. And a few times there's only been 3 or 4 of us, but usually we have about 6 sitting around the table, and we enjoy the conversation as well.
That's awesome. Well,
thanks.
Years ago, not years ago, but a while back, you had invited me as a representative of the Beaches Town Center Agency, the nonprofit that works with the city of Atlantic Beach and Neptune Beach that I'm currently president of. And that was with the Chamber of Commerce, correct? That's who I presented
Yes.
to. So how did you get involved in that?
So a long time ago, an engineer said to me, you can't do the work unless you can get the work. And it doesn't matter how good you are at the work if nobody wants you to do it for them. And so I had, always worked on my craft as an attorney to be, quote unquote, one of the good ones and good at what we do. But I never really focused on the business building. As I told you, I'm a Presbyterian preacher's kid. That business was not what was talked about at our dinner table. Mm-hmm. And so I needed to learn how to network. And I was very fortunate that at the time John Bryan was working for the Chamber, and we've become good friends, but he was somebody who was helping others learn how to network. And The first time you walk into one of those meetings, you're in a room of complete strangers and you're frightened to move in. You go in and don't know how it's going to work out. And then after a while, you remember, hey, everybody else is here for the same reason and nobody's going to bite you. So go ahead and talk to some folks. And well, flash forward years later, now you just go to those events and looking for how many hugs you're going to get, of people that you know and love and who you might meet. So I became active in the chamber, and I'm still active in the beaches division on their board. I was really fortunate. The Small Business Leader Breakfast is coming up next month, and 8 years ago, I guess now, or sometime in the past, they chose me as Jacksonville's overall Small Business Leader of the Year. And it's interesting to me, and I know you have a very charitable heart. One of the people that was on the panel told me a year later, says, John, it wasn't because you were an attorney. You could swing a dead cat and hit an attorney. He said, but when we looked through back then we did a physical book. Now it's done digitally. When you turn the page to the awards you'd won for business, it was a very short page, but then you flip the page to the charities you've been involved in, and the whole page was full. And it was just an honest reflection of who I am. And he said that was what impressed us. I'd like to think it was partly because my business is set up to benefit other businesses. That's who we serve. I like to say entrepreneurs are my jam. They just are wonderful people creating business and employing others and just making our region and our country better. But from there, periodically, I've gone and joined other networking type groups. And also, as you just described with the referral lunches, try to create some spaces that people can effectively network with each other and build relationships, because that's really what it is. It's building relationships over time. To your listeners, the one thing that I like to impart to anyone who's new at it is don't go to a chamber meeting trying to sell your product to someone. Go to a chamber meeting knowing that you're going to meet people that know 200 people that may need your product. And so that just be authentic. Thus the bright shirts these days instead of the button down and tie. And get to know people, and you'll find those people that are good fits for you and business. And, I always try to give the first referral. If I could find somebody to refer to you, you're going to think, oh, wow, I'd like to do something for him as well. So,
that's
the giving.
Great advice. It really is.
Yep. Thanks. I really think it's the way to go. One of my fastest turnoffs is, can I get a card and can I sell you my product? It's like, no. No. And I want to take them and go, let me just do a 101 with you, So, but those events are wonderful ways to meet people. And just always remember, they're there too for business, right? They want to grow their businesses too. And so it's not so that it doesn't feel awkward to know in the back of your mind that, hey, I'm going to meet some people and ultimately it's going to help Rock Solid Law and Title.
So are there other groups that you're involved in that I'm not aware of, or, besides the chamber?
Probably a whole bunch of them. I have to say that, having practiced a long time now, I've started to cut back on the number of organizations that I'm a member of. One I really enjoy is the Jacksonville Business Professionals, which sort of evolved when the SBDC, the Small Business Center at the UNF, stopped its resource network. This is a group of business people that started a new one. And it's all professionals who serve business in one way or another. Mm-hmm. So, it's a group where there are other business lawyers, other title lawyers, and other estate planning lawyers. And that's okay. People think, oh, I like her, but I like you. And it's like, guess what? She and I refer to each other when we think that the other one is better suited for a particular client. And I'm thinking of exactly of another lawyer right now who I think the world of. And sometimes there are people that she is just better suited to help than I am, and I'm going to get them to them. So I love that group. Oh, goodness gracious. I know there are others, and if my marketing team were in here with me, they'd give me a cue card, but I'm blanking completely, Kendra, on the others.
I totally understand the whole cutting back. I've had a very full volunteer card, and I'm trying to evaluate, how I want to spend my time as well.
Right.
And your kids are young right now, aren't they? I mean,
they are.
Is that part of trying to cut back? Like, you've got so much going on?
Absolutely. I say my wife and I are full-time soccer moms, in addition to 2 kids in the academic magnet, which is full-time job for Krista. And the other thing, I have a junior, so we're starting to look at colleges, and that's when you become aware, as you know, that at 18 they leave the nest, and I actually really like my daughter, so I'm going to miss her when she moves away, and I think her little brother is too. So I also have a 10-year-old. So yeah, we have a very full family life, and I want to be I love being a parent. Huge privilege, full-time job on its own for everybody who undertakes it, and I want to be as present in their lives as I can. So yeah, I've had to make some choices. I'm just not going to go to those things now that are business things that are really not feeding my business, because I'd rather be at home with my kids. So,
Right.
There's charity too. So that's going to take some time, those organizations. And you just have to balance which things you're going to do.
Right. I think for me, I'm trying to evaluate what truly brings me joy. What do I enjoy doing?
Yeah.
And evaluating from there.
Yeah.
I've been involved in Dance in the Streets for many, many years. And this wasn't an attempt to, pull back, but my daughter's getting married this year on the day of Dance in the Street. So it'll be the first one I haven't been at in many, many years. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's such a great festival. I love that group, all the people there. It's another hug fest. But I read the book Work Happy a couple of years ago, and you just mentioned joy, and I completely agree with that. I actually have just over there a big shell conglomeration that spells the word joy, and I will show you here on my desk. I don't collect figurines, but I bought Happy. This is Happy from the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and he sits on my desk to remind me to be happy, because not everybody this will come as a shock to you, Kendra, but not everybody you deal with in a law practice is a happy person. And one of the reasons I stopped litigating was, being paid to fight over other people's problems works for some people. Some people feed off that. It wasn't my thing. I much prefer putting the deal together, helping people be happy. So when we close a home, somebody gets keys, the other somebody gets money, and mostly everybody is pleased with the result of the transaction being over and everything having worked out, and we all part with smiles on our faces.
Yeah, I am definitely like a problem solver, as an agent, and I am a connector in the sense of I have resources and people that can support my buyer or my seller. And when I first got my real estate license, I was really hitting it hard, just trying to, go, build my business. And I went through kind of a burnout stage, because it's easy to do in real estate, not turn it off, And at a certain point, when I finally identified, okay, I need rest, I started to have some transactions that really brought me joy. And I realized I was connecting with these people for a reason, because I had the resources to help them. I had the knowledge and the experience to guide them through these difficult transactions and transitions, seasons of life. And yes, that part of the transaction brings me joy. It's not always easy to get the transactions, to get the business, but once I have it, I feel like I provide a really good customer experience.
Yep. And then those people are going to tell the next person about you. All right? You make the real connection. And like you said, drafting every trust isn't a ball of fun. But what I know that is doing for the children or grandchildren or spouse or whatever of the person I'm working with and the family I'm working with, man, that brings great joy. Knowing there's a family that have done an adult thing. They've planned the future, and
Right.
It's going to really be okay. And that person's very likely to be celebrated, mourned, but celebrated and loved on their crossing over. So, yeah, I'm with you.
And I think it's also helping those families have those conversations. My dad and my stepmom lived in a 55 and up community in Jacksonville, and I have I sell a lot in that neighborhood, and a lot of those sellers are making the transition to independent living or moving in with their child or taking a path. And that's such a hard conversation for them to have with their kids, or not, not having the support.
Right.
So opening those options and figuring out what is the best fit, that's become something I've gotten pretty good at as well.
Sure. And that's the gold that's in your network and referral list, to get them to the people that can help find that next place that's the right fit for them, or whatever that is.
Yeah. It's been a journey, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we haven't talked about?
Music keeps my brain on straight. It's sort of my form of meditation, because I can't think about my law practice while I'm playing bass guitar and singing at the same time.
Right.
So I think everybody needs something like that, and that's the one that works for me. And always having the next time to share the music with people coming up. I know we're going to do Springing the Blues and the Beaches Museum Chapel Concert Series this year. That's exciting.
So how often are you playing?
I usually play 3 or 4 days a month. That's plenty for me, especially with kids. I almost always do it on only weekends, although that concert date is a Thursday in May. I can hit a one-offs now and again. I'm fortunate in that I get to love music because I don't do it for a living, and so I don't have that grind of trying to play 6-7 nights a week, which I respect the people that do so much. But the booking is not the fun part of the industry, the business. So yeah, I love the Jacksonville music community. We have such amazingly talented people. I really credit University of North Florida's jazz program for a lot of that. The scene really changed once that program accelerated, and they've just offered us so many great musicians to pick and choose from as we, fill out our bands and when we need to have somebody sit in.
Yeah, even Dancing in the Streets, the Orange Street stage was always kind of the up-and-coming bands, and it's been fun to watch some of them make it to the main stage and some of them make it nationally,
Yep.
But so did you grow up playing? I mean, were you a musician from the start?
I was forced to have piano lessons for 7 years as a child, and I didn't take, although I have admitted to my mother that I wish I'd never quit. And I switched to drums at age 13 and had my first band that year, and then switched to bass at age 25. I was always kind of a singer, and I guess I was always a singer, and I wanted to get out from behind the drum kit and be at the front of the stage, and bass and drums are the rhythm of a band. So it was hard to learn, but it was a pretty easy transition because I had the rhythm component. I just had to learn the other component. So literally, as long as I can remember, I've been involved in music, and I've performed and recorded for 50 years. So I think that's pretty much always at this point, and love it. They asked Paul McCartney if he'd rather have a Rolls Royce or a band, and of course he can have both, but he said he'd take the band. So I'll take the band too. It's special to be in those moments where you're connecting with an audience and really making music that is taking people to a joyful place, to use your joy word. I call it going through the veil. Every now and then that bond between artist and audience is so great that you just sort of float off into another realm of existence that I don't meditate well, so I can't get there other ways. Music's the one for me.
So has it affected your children? Like, are they musically oriented?
So I wish more. I still have a drum kit in the house, and they both love the drums. In fact, Craig from Mofro has been over to give lessons. So I'll be happy if they decide to be drummers, but I'd be happier if they'd be guitarists. I just think there's just a lot of happiness at the front of the stage with a microphone in front of you. I'd love to share that with them. I don't know that they'll go that route. I think for years our daughter thought every kid grew up and had a band, and so she said, "Hey Dad, you could be in my band when I grow up." I'm like, "Okay, that's cool." Not sure that's still an offer that's outstanding at this point, but yeah. They love music. They both thankfully have rhythm. I think it'd be really hard to have a kid that didn't have rhythm for a musician. And so they'll find their own journey. She's playing with the ukulele a little bit now, has picked the guitar back up a little bit. So they'll find their way forward.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great stuff.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Just really cherish the friendship and the referral of business with each other, and just seeing you.
Me too, Kendra. You're kind of like a mantra or a meditation session. It calms me down to spend time with you.
Yeah, I definitely been told I'm very zen and like the zen energy. Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned getting past an unhealthy decade, I think is the way you said it. And having known you for a long time, it just, your inner glow is outer now, and you look healthy and happy, and that just affects all aspects of our lives, personal, professional, all that stuff. So yay you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to Find the Connection. I hope today's episode gave you some helpful insights and inspired you to get involved in your community. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps others find us. And if you're interested in making a move or learning more about Northeast Florida, reach out to me anytime. Let's keep finding the connection together. Until next time, stay connected and keep thriving.